Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Norwood Selectmen's meeting for the 14th of January, 2020. As always, let us begin tonight with a pledge of allegiance to the flag and a moment of silent prayer or reflection.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Please be seated. It's a great pleasure tonight to have with us the Friends of the Council on Aging to present us with a check. And we're going to thank them for what they've done for us. They have given us funds to purchase a new van for the senior center. So with that, I'd like to have them come up and sit in front of us, if you would, at that table. As we get started, I just want to open up by saying thank you to all the board members for what you've done for the town of Norwood in the past and the present. For the people at home, I want people at home to note that they've given us $75,000. They've made a donation to the town of Norwood for the purpose of a senior citizen van. The old one is in pretty much disrepair and it's time to go. So I'd like to say again thank you and open up to some of my board members for comments if I could. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, my friends. Nice to see you all. The one thing that comes to my mind is seniors helping seniors. I mean, it doesn't get any better. I mean, it really doesn't to me. I mean, that's just the epitome, it really is. And I, as a fellow senior, just thank you so much for what you're doing. Is this the second or third time? Second? Okay, that's incredible. 150,000 total. Incredible, incredible. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Plasko?
Thank you. Mr. Howard just brought out the fact that this isn't the first time, it is in fact the second time. But the efforts of the Friends of the Senior Council on Aging go well beyond these two buses, as significant as they are. They work all the time to provide support for the senior center and smaller projects that aren't quite as big and noteworthy as this one, but they're just as important, and they contribute to the welfare of all the citizens, senior citizens that use that facility. And we thank you very much for your ongoing efforts, and especially for, obviously, this big significant contribution. Your efforts are greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Plasko. Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's evident you're all on the same team, which is terrific. Would you, thank you for the donations, would you be kind enough to introduce yourselves?
My name is Karen Winters.
Jim Schmidt.
Ann Benson.
Bill McCoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hajjat?
I also want to thank you. Very proud, you should be proud of what you do throughout the year for the seniors and all those that take advantage of utilizing the bus. It's a great contributory to the needs of the seniors, and I think by its use throughout the year, you already know that. So I thank you, and while the board is very glad to receive it, I think we're more proud that we have such an engaged Friends of the Norwood Council on Aging that help our fellow seniors. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. And I think it's important for the people at home to know this is not just a bus that transports people back and forth to the senior center. It accommodates a lot of needs. It takes people shopping. It takes them to various medical appointments and so on and so on. So it really deeply serves the communities, the elderly community. So again, thank you. And that amount of money for that check was $75,000, which again, it's been stated, it's an incredible amount of money to come up with, and we thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts for that donation to the seniors here in Norwood. Thank you very much.
Do we need to formally accept this offer?
Yeah, I just want to get some comments if they have.
Oh, absolutely.
Any comments from your end?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, people don't realize, this is our 19th year, but we got to thank the people that helped us. Roach Brothers, Costco's, Norwood Bank, Dedham Bank, Westbury Farms, and the Mug and Muffin. Because we really couldn't have done it without them. And of course, all the support of the people up there. And if you've never been up to the senior center, come up someday and walk the hall and see the plaques on the wall for all the ones that have passed away. That money has been donated towards this senior center. And last but not least, we can't thank Kerry McCarthy enough. She's made a tremendous difference up there. The spirit up there is fantastic, and it's probably the busiest senior center I've seen in my going around.
And I think you're right, because I hear from people from Walpole, from Westwood, they love coming to Norwood.
Well, the Norwood Senior Center, if you take it in perspective, I'd say 50% of them come from out of town just to go to Norwood. Dedham, we got to thank the people from Dedham, Westwood, Canton, Sharon, and Walpole, and West Roxbury. And we have a group from, where the hell are we up north? Belmont, and they come down every month for our dance. We have a Friday night dance, the third Friday of the month, 7 to 10, and it's only $10 a person. That includes everything, the dancing and the refreshments and the door prizes. And if anybody's interested in coming up sometime, come up. If you're 50 years old, we'll let you come up and dance.
I'm almost there.
You lie like a rug.
Every third Friday?
Third Friday of every month.
7 to 10.
And we'd love to have some more people up there because we know that a lot of places are closing down. And that's one thing we don't want to do. It's one of our main venues. And I thank you.
You know, it's, anybody else?
Yeah, you know, another thing, I don't think that people realize how much the town of Norwood is helping us. You know, a lot of towns don't give much credit to the seniors at all, but Norwood is very, very good town to the seniors. And we
Norwood's the
appreciate
kind of a
it.
place that the seniors, we have to respect the seniors, because many of them helped create the town as it is today, the town we have. Many have worked for the town and done volunteer work in the town and brought us to this point, so this town owes a lot to the seniors. Anything else?
The one thing I'd like to say is, two of our members here tonight, Jimmy has been with us 17 years, and God bless Ann, she's been the treasurer for 19 years. And that's not a one-day-a-week job, that's a 7-day-a-week job for her. So we've been very fortunate, and we thank the town for all they've done for us too. After all, you were the people that, along with the state, that helped us get the new addition. And that one we gave $250,000 for too.
Thank you for that also. Thank you for everything you've done. It's a great town, and like I said, a lot of the seniors have made it the great town that it is, and a lot of them go there today and every day to take part in different events, and it's, you cannot say enough about Kerry McCarthy.
No?
She's outstanding, she's done a great job, but she couldn't have done that without the assistance of the Friends of the Council of Aging, on the Council of Aging, so thank you again for everything you've done. Anything else from the board?
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, with great thanks, accept the donation on the Chapter 4453A
Second?
and authorize the manager to expend the funds in accordance with the donation.
And on that too, that will go on a municipal bid list, the farmer van, if you will, and whatever funds are derived from that will go back to the council.
Thank you.
So, the Friends,
The
so
Friends.
I thank you, Friends of the Council. So I thank you, and we'll do our part by giving you whatever funds we raise. So I have a motion and a second to accept donation of $75,000 for the senior citizen bus. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
And remember one thing, Tony's too young to ride in the bus.
Can I do one more thing? Can I do one more thing before you leave?
Yeah, sure.
We have a thing here, a letter here from the Friends of Norwood Council on Aging. They would like to put a flyer in the May light bills for donations of memberships to the Friends of Norwood Council on Aging. Do I have a motion to?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you
May.
very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Tony, good to see you again. Don't forget my driveway has to be shoveled.
I'll be there
You
tomorrow.
look good since you've recovered.
Thanks, guys.
Come on in, the water's fine. Don't be afraid.
McCoy doesn't know how to make an exit, does he?
How you doing, John?
Wait a minute, are they second or third?
We've concluded our appointment with the Friends of the Council on Aging. Now we're going to hear from Mr. James Collins from the Light Department with his monthly dissertation on the events at the Light Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My lead item is always the transmission project. The second piece of that project will happen in April when we do the transition out in the by Fuller Street. We'll be transitioning some wires. Then that will wrap up that project. For projects, Avalon Bay is complete, I mean, as far as we're concerned. On Washington Street, that project, the foundations are in. Boston Gate Club is moving along, I think they're gonna be a really good sized customer. St. Catherine's Convent property is moving along, I think they're gonna be doing foundations shortly. We finally heard from the MBTA, they're hoping to have it energized by the end of February.
That's good news.
It's been ready for about a year. The landfill solar project is, we had a meeting, we've been having several meetings, the RFP ready, we're trying to determine the most effective way and the way to get the most out of it, I guess. We have another meeting set up, and we're hoping to maybe do an RFQ where we try to get some prices, get a developer to come in, put in a solar project there, and we'll buy the power from them. If the board is in favor of us, we'll give them a lease. Rather than charge them taxes, we'll try to get a lower energy price, which will benefit everyone. As long as we can get our price below our average cost, it will be very, very helpful. And then it would be a good long-term project, I think, for the town.
So, if I can, before we leave the subject, Mr. Chairman. So Jimmy, what would be the incentive for the developer to build the solar panel project without knowing that we're going to, as the direct, it's right in our backyard, if they know or don't know in advance that they are going to be able to do something with the town?
Oh, they'll know that in advance. In other words, the plan will be, give us a price under these conditions. In other words, they would, for them, beyond the benefit they get from selling us the power, beyond that revenue, there are tax credits that are very, first 7 years are very lucrative, I think, for the developers, and that's really where they get the chunk of their change is up front at the beginning of these projects. So as long as it's a cash flow thing for them. In other words,
So it's your intent, if I can, it's your intent as part of the RFP is outlining what they would have to submit for pricing in order for the town to be a customer of theirs to purchase solar power?
No, the other way around. In other words, we'll go out to several companies that we think are reputable companies that certainly have the financial strength. In other words, they'd have to give financial assurances in any event, just like we would any power supply deal. They have to provide financial security for the life of the project.
Right.
And so we would go to the several strong suitors, if you would, have them provide us, bid to us what their numbers would be. And then you select from the best numbers, the best project, if you would. In other words, it would be the other way around. I can't tell them what price they're gonna bid, but they...
No, I wasn't suggesting you
I'm
did that.
sorry.
I was suggesting what the price that they would have to beat in order for Norwood to be enticed into.
Oh,
So this way you're telling everybody in advance, this is what we can do at
I
best.
see what you're saying.
They're all
Yeah.
getting the same
Like a
information.
minimum bid?
Well, yes, right. So, I mean, it helps short circuit the process because otherwise you're gonna get,
In other words, why waste your time if you're too expensive?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
We could provide that. I just didn't know if that would raise in other words, they think that's the number they have to hit. And then they might not come down lower. That's one of my concerns.
that's understandable too. Okay.
I mean, we'll always have the ability to reject a bid.
Right, it's just that if you get 10 suitors, or potentially 10 suitors that have now showing interest, and
They're gonna
8 of
know,
them,
they're gonna know our average cost.
Okay.
They'll ask that at the pre-bid meeting, what's your average cost, that type of thing. So they
Okay.
should have a good understanding of where they need to be.
Mr. Plasko?
What's the period of time you're talking about, thinking about?
It's probably a month or two.
No.
Oh,
Kind of
20, I would think a 20-year
20
period of time would be a normal, for long-term purchase power, like the windmill deals that we've done
Right.
and the solar deals that we are in currently, they're typically 20-year deal with options at the end to extend on a 5-year basis. That's a typical,
And do we know if that's typical in that business, these solar?
I believe it is. I mean, as far as I know, I'm quite sure that that's a pretty typical arrangement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plasko. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. That, I presume that any developer, they're paying all the costs going in, right?
That's correct.
So our only involvement is buying power at hopefully a reduced price. That's simple.
Yeah, buying power, probably policing it to some degree. In other words,
Yeah.
making sure it's not a problem, you know what I mean? In other words, we're gonna wanna make sure they take good care of the project.
You mean the property and everything?
The property, I mean, it is nevertheless a town
Yeah,
property, so we
absolutely.
do want them to be good.
Of course,
yeah.
of course.
But that's really our only involvement. I mean,
Right.
the financial risk are very, very limited.
Yeah, that, it's all good. It's all good, definitely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I'm also, you're going to talk about 429?
I'm going there, yeah.
Okay.
429 is a project down on the Poncha Street, which is in back of Jake and Joe's. It was started several years ago, about 10 or 12 years ago.
At
The
least.
foundations were actually put in the ground. I think 2 or 3 units were built, and then they stopped, and now they're being resurrected. So they'll be coming back, and that project is ongoing.
That's good to see that finally come to some
Yeah.
conclusion, that property. Thank you.
The Munis conversion, with the utility billing, they're still working through some of the issues. We're making progress, we think. We don't have a go-live date yet, but we are working on that, spending a lot of time on that. We want to make sure we have it right before we put it out to the people, make sure the bills are correct.
As far as the online bill payments, people have an opportunity to try to understand that under the new system.
Yeah, once we do go live with the new system, it has a different online payment service that we will be using, and we'll have to be very, very, we'll advertise that and put flyers out on that.
And how to operate
In
it,
advance,
how
how
to
to
pay
do
bills
that,
online.
correct.
Thank you.
If I could, excuse me.
Go ahead.
On the bill payment, I did that. I mean, all I did was fill out a form.
Right.
Done. No cost, no nothing, on a particular day of the month.
Oh, that's
It's
for the-
convenient to you folks.
That's
My
for
bill is
the
paid.
That's for the ACH.
Yeah.
That's a very convenient way to do it, and we encourage.
What's
peop-
ACH?
And we encourage people to do that. It's,
Oh, yeah.
that's-
It
once-
was so
Once
slick.
people are on it, they're normally very, very happy. You never miss a discount.
All I had to do once was check the 2 boxes
Yep,
and sign the form.
yep.
And drop it off. Done. I mean, it doesn't get any easier, no
Well,
cost, no
that-
cost
that-
added
that's
on.
correct, yep.
And if I'm on vacation, the bill will be paid,
paid,
and I
right.
won't get yelled at.
That's right.
Thank you.
Mr. Zia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, when you're outlining the new bill payment process, right now, there's a 25-cent fee to use the outside vendor that you utilized today. And you're talking about switching to a different vendor. Is it still going to be cost?
I'm not exactly sure of the cost. The different vendor is the Munis system. They have their own system that you have to use.
Right, so,
And I feel embarrassed, I don't know, but I don't know the cost right at the moment. I suspect it's very, very similar in nature to what we have today, that the AC, that the 25-cent option will be, I think still available. We'll have to see what their numbers are, but I expect them to be in line.
okay. So, some of the concern might be for the customers out there is not only are we switching systems, we're switching the way they're going to process and pay their bills. So there just needs to be a little bit of
To be-
advance notice and education so people understand, regardless of whether there was gonna be a 25% fee or not.
Right.
You're really discarding the current third-party vendor, and you're staying in-house with the system that the town has purchased, so.
Required,
People need to
that's
know that,
correct, yeah.
okay.
I mean, it will require some education
Yep.
on our part.
I imagine you probably put something out on, no, like.
We'll
broadband.
put it out, we'll put flyers in the bills and things of that nature. We'll have, be able to do electronic bills too if people want it.
Thank you.
Big news, 136 SF Road, this weekend, we're moving down there. On Tuesday, we will open for business down there. The building's complete, we're still doing a little bit of punch list work, but it's essentially complete. The trucks have been rolling in and out, we're moving our stock in, getting going. It's a busy weekend, looking forward to it. We do plan on having a ribbon cutting and an open house combination on February 29th. We figure by then, hopefully, we'll be cleaned up from the move, with boxes won't be all over the place, and we'll be organized.
It's
Mr.
been a long
Chair.
time coming. Mr. Howard.
As it happened, you folks kept saying to me, you gotta come down and see it, I went down today. And to the folks out there, if you don't come down on February 29th to the open house and see this place, your electric light facility and cable TV, it's incredible. It's the only word, it's incredible. Everything is state-of-the-art with security, with key fobs to get through all the doors for security and safety. It's beautiful. The shop area, I'd call it, where all the trucks go, incredible. Fumes go out from the ceiling, and with the process they have going on, it's just a beautiful, wonderful building that you folks have supervised going in down there, and I thank you so much, seriously, Mr. Collins. You've done such a great job supervising
I don't
this
deserve the
thing.
credit.
Yeah.
The people that did the construction.
Yeah, but
part
you
of the work.
know, it's the guy telling them what to do, that's the secret, you know, that at times here, some of our construction in Norwood, find it hard to believe, hasn't been so great. But this building, it looks wonderful. It looks inside and out, it looks wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Electric vehicle program is moving along. We have 12 vehicles now. We keep on getting interest. I think this program is going to keep on climbing. We had a discussion, we had a conference call the other day with this company that manages for it, and they said in Norwood they think there's actually 37 electric vehicles is what they tell from the registration. The fact that we have 12 is good. A couple more in the works. The same company, we're going to try to do some other things with them. You know, the general manager and I have talked about electric heat pumps, you know, pushing them as a source of heat. And this company also does statistics and gives you the program. They're going to work with us on developing a program where we encourage people to do that in a way that we can get people to use electric heat, maybe use it off-peak, so it will be beneficial for us, be beneficial for the customers. That's one of the things that we're looking forward to in the future.
Question.
Yes.
Why, that brings up a good point. Why do you think electric heat is not more commonly installed in new construction today? Is it, I mean, or is it starting to, I lived in a place with a heat pump years and years ago.
Straight electric heat is cheap to install, but it's not that efficient. What they're talking about today are heat pumps that are very efficient, and they actually can replace like an oil burner in your home, and it will be a heat pump. I don't think that the heat pumps themselves are that inexpensive, so they rely on rebates, which we may have to get into doing a little bit of rebate from our fund in order to encourage it. But because of the you know, typically a fairly flat load, it's a good revenue maker for us. And beyond that, you can probably set, you know, set it to, like the cars are set to not go on peak, that the heat pump could be set the same way, so that we keep them off peak, and it would be beneficial to us load-wise.
Are they, do heat pumps any more efficient today at really low temperatures than they were, say, 30 years ago?
The salesmen tell you they are. As far as I know, they are. They tell me that they can now work well in the region. I mean, years ago, they said when you get down below 10 degrees or so, they had to have actual electric heat come on to keep the coils warm. But now I think they are being designed for lower temperatures, and they tell me that they do. But I don't profess to be an expert.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you, Mr. Maloney, in colder climates, you're seeing heat pumps are all the rage. They have them for some time. The state of Maine actually had to change their plumbing code regulations to allow permits to get out faster for people to install heat pumps. You're starting to see the market towards more electric heat shift a little bit, and what's really changed is the electricity used by appliances is so vastly different than it was 30 or 40 years ago. So 40 years ago in your home, what your TV, your washer, your dishwasher, your refrigerator, what they used for electricity was enormous compared to where it is today. So the idea that electric heat would be so expensive is slowly changing. There are some communities, Brookline for instance, which is passed a bylaw, it hasn't gone past the Attorney General yet, requiring all new construction to be electric heat and all new commercial to be electric heat as well, unless there's some industrial reason why. So as the efficiency of devices come down, as distributed generation becomes more popular, I think you'll start to see it more and more.
I had a heat pump in a place I lived in 34 years ago or something, and that's the one thing we knew about it. When it get really cold, you were going to be cold. It didn't, but you figured it. It's been 35 years of improvement, so they probably are a lot better. Thank you.
And we had a retirement in the department. Normally, I don't talk about retirement.
It's worth talking about.
This particular individual has been a tremendous employee for 47 years. He was a hard worker and had a great attitude. He did whatever was asked of him, and then some. And we're very sorry to see him go. His name is Chris Griffin. He's a tremendous individual.
Is he gone now?
He's gone now. I'm thinking we may be able to retrieve him a little. The way that we do our maintenance on our buildings, we have retirees work a couple hours, like 2 days a week, and we have one Pebble doing it 2 days a week, and I'm thinking if we can drag Chris back for a couple days a week, and then we'll have a service for the other two days a week.
Nice.
And then
He's a fine man.
he's a good man, and he's a hard worker.
Oh, yeah. Good guy.
I actually happened to run into him that night of the day of his retirement, and he could not, because he's delighted. I think Mrs. Griffin was retiring too, but he could not say enough good things about his career and the people he worked with, seriously, at the department. So,
He's a great employee.
yeah.
Great.
I think pretty much we feel the same way. He's been a great employee for 47 years.
47 years, usually after 2025, we make some recognition. I think it'll be appropriate.
I would like to have him come before the board if we could.
However you'd like to handle it, but I think we should prepare something.
If you would reach out to Christopher Griffin, see if he would to come in front of the board so we can give him the proper homage that he deserves, possibly a plaque or whatever that might be. It's really not enough to recognize 47 years, but he's done an outstanding job. He's always been under the radar. He's a quiet man. He gets his job done very efficiently and effectively, and he's a great, great employee, and I thank him for that. So if you could try to make arrangements, we'd like to have...
Tommy can bring the whole family.
Aunts, cousins, relatives,
We
whatever.
need a bigger room.
Let me take that back. There's too many Griffins to fit in this.
The immediate family you meant.
There's too many Griffins to fit in this room.
Well, thank
Ask him if he'd call Mrs. Mulvihill and she'll schedule it for
you.
us.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I will reach out to Chris.
I think it's important that we respect our employees and show them proper respect.
Thank
And
you.
he's one of them. Thank you.
With that, we go to broadband. I'll have Dell do the
My
broadband
favorite
segment,
part.
if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, we did the food pantry drive. Again, it was successful. Raised over $2,000. Last count was at $2,000, but we expected a little bit more to come in once the installs were done. Also, premiering this month, we did The Gentleman from Norwood, which is a Jerry Kelleher production. It's playing on Channel 19 a few times a week. If you haven't seen it yet, it's very good. It's about Governor Allen, who was a Norwood resident many years ago. And as usual, Jerry just did a great job, on this documentary. So I recommend tuning into Channel 19, look at the schedule, and sit down and watch the show. It's very good. Last quarter of last year, our commercial sales did remarkable. And in the last month with a very big deal with some car dealerships who ordered dedicated fiber circuits, which are very high revenue for the broadband department. And that project is expected to be complete, I believe, early in February. So we're going to start seeing revenue from that one huge sale. Work on the new building's been taking up a lot of our time. Some of the things that I was focusing on in the middle of last year kind of took a back shelf during the build. We hope in 2020 that we can refocus on things like the app-based video services that I told you folks about earlier in the year. Fiber to the home. Going forward, our aging infrastructure out there is going to have to be updated, and that looks like the most cost-effective and long-range way to do it. And then the mesh Wi-Fi, which I know is gaining a lot of momentum in not only cable television but in the retail world. They are available through Best Buy and many of these tech stores. The advantage of getting it through your cable company or through us is that it's going to give us the availability to see into the network from our office and be able to maintain it better. If you're having some problems, we can help you tweak it and such. So those are some of the things that we're looking forward to digging into more deeply this coming year.
When do we think we might see something like that available to the homeowners?
The mesh network?
No, the mesh.
Yeah, it's probably going to be another couple months anyways. As Jim indicated, we got to wait for the dust to settle with the new build, and we'll be able to, again, refocus on it. We have some being trialed right now, and that's the Plume product, but there are some other products out there, so we got to weigh the cost and the quality and all that yet.
So it would benefit people that might not have gone and purchased it at Best Buys or wherever it might be.
Sure.
To wait and see what
we're going to offer.
What we recommend.
Right. So I'm hoping, at the end of first quarter, early second quarter, to have something that we can offer our
I look
customers.
forward to it.
Could you say a little more, please? Because even I don't know what you're talking about.
So currently, if you have our Wi-Fi service, we'll come in, we'll put a device, a gateway, in the middle of your house, or where we think
Right.
it's going to have the best coverage. If you have a larger house, or you have thick walls, concrete walls, sometimes even kitchen appliances will interfere with it. You may
Glass
have great
doors.
service on, pardon?
Glass
Glass
doors,
doors
big
that will
sliding
reflect
glass
off
doors.
of. So you may have great service in this part of your house, but in this part of your house you don't. So you go over there with your cell phone or your laptop or your tablet, it's not working so good. The mesh network puts these little pods throughout your house, so no matter where you go, your service is good. And this is particularly important now that these app-based video services are coming. So if you got one of these app-based services, even Netflix, if you're watching Netflix in the living room, then you carry your tablet into the bedroom, or if you have a library or something like that, you may lose your signal. So if you have this mesh network, you're always going to have good signal no matter where you go, and that these services are going to work better, to be much more user-friendly.
These are things that just plug into the wall, small
Yeah.
little devices.
That's right.
Oh, and your wiring system circulates it?
They're all wireless. So
Yeah.
you don't have to run any more wires in your house. So they'll talk to each other through wireless, and then they'll
Yeah.
talk to your devices through
Gotcha.
wireless.
Thank you.
So that's really all I have to report. If there's any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Hanson, thank you. I noticed looking at the financials that it appears this is a good thing, bonds payable, and bonds payable is down on a monthly basis, and interest expense are down, so some of the debt we incurred in the early part of the century is rolling off,
It is.
which is a good thing. Are we looking at, I'm only thinking in terms because we have a capital outlay meeting tomorrow night, but are we looking at any potential major investments in technology do you foresee in the next year or two?
Not in the next year, probably in this next year after, when we start looking at fiber to the home. We
Okay.
may need to borrow some money at that point.
Okay.
We're in a very good position, better than most cable companies, because, thanks to Jimmy and the group that put this together originally, they put a lot of fiber in the plant already. So we got a lot more than most cable companies have going
Okay.
into this type of venture. So
That's-
the amount that we're going to have to borrow is going to be a lot less than most companies would have to.
Well, that'd be great. The biggest expense you have is video services, subscriber fees and so forth. I see some of them moved slightly, programming fees, up slightly year to date, 18 over 19. But I know there was, it sort of, that line item skyrocketed for a few years. Looks like it's leveling off. Is that because of the decline in?
It is. The costs are still climbing at a tremendous rate, and here we are into another year, January. We expect some big increases this month. And then at the end of this year, we'll be negotiating with the local broadcasters again, and they were the most greediest out of all of them. So I expect next January that the increases are going to be even higher. On the other hand, the people taking cable TV is going the other direction, so that's why it looks like it's leveling off.
Okay.
Okay, so we're losing video customers and sometimes retail, so it kind of offsets each other.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I think we knew that was going to happen. The cord cutter generation has come forward. But we're making our money on the internet side of it.
Right.
And that's where the money really
And
is.
those counts are going up. We're getting more and more customers just taking the broadband services, so.
That's a good thing. You good?
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the board? Nothing? Seeing
Thank
none?
you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Darryl, please keep me in the loop on Bloom.
I will. I think I know a good test customer.
That brings us to our third appointment this evening with Mr. Mark Ryan, DPW/Director of /Town Engineer also. He's going to give us his monthly report, and he's also going to give us a second report we'll talk about in a moment.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members
Good evening,
of
sir.
the board. So you have my report in front of you. I can go through it. As you said, we have a complete streets discussion to follow up, so, you know, if you want me to go through my report, I can.
Not really. Can I ask a couple questions? You know, if anybody's got questions, I guess. Thank you. So I got the letter for a meter replacement, and I made the appointment, which is this week. So for myself and the public, what's the story here?
So, yes, thank you. So back in the early 2000s, Mr. Howard, we started the automated meter reading system, where with your water meter, which used to have to be read, you know, manually, we went to a system where an MTU, a meter transmission unit, was put in next to your meter. It's probably a 4x4 little plastic device that's connected to your meter, and it transmits meter readings to the billing department twice a day. So this allows for meter readings and billing to be done monthly, and that was the whole goal, to get a consistent amount of revenue coming in on a monthly basis, rather than waiting, you know, quarterly or semi-annually. So those meter transmission units do have a lifespan, and they have a battery in it, and we recognize as they're declining, we have to replace them. So we send letters out to the residents that we know that the units are declining in battery life and are suspect as far as being able to transmit readings consistently. So we send letters out, and we set up appointments to show up and replace that meter transmission unit and the meter itself.
So both of them are going to be replaced?
Correct.
I get that. So it is a battery in it that dies, is that it, rather than recharge, it can be recharged again or something?
Yeah, it can't be recharged.
Its life wears out?
It does, yes.
So that's the easiest way, I guess, to describe it.
Correct.
That's very, very interesting, and I thank you for that. On the variable parts of our recycling contract, how do we stand? How are we doing ongoing?
Actually, we're doing, I think, fairly well. Sarah Winthrop and I keep an eye on the monthly totals, recycling. You know, we always focus on recycling percentage. That was like the biggest focus, you know, getting more into recycling, less into solid waste. And as we all know, those costs for either one have kind of merged, and we're now focusing on more of how much total volume, either recycling or solid waste. And we see them not increasing dramatically, and I believe we're people are adhering to, some of the things that we've all done, with, encouraging, food scrap composting. If you watch, if you sat outside the DPW yard, people constantly coming to dispose of their food scraps or at the landfill. So that's a volume that used to go in the solid waste that doesn't anymore. And people are, recognizing, single-use items really aren't beneficial to us.
Right.
Where
Where is that, if you will, garbage container at the yard down here? Is there one?
Right behind the Civic, very accessible.
Right behind the Civic?
Yeah,
That-
it's
that's
not,
where that's at?
it's not out of the way, people take
That's where they
advantage
can
of
go
that.
to?
Dirt, any time of the day. And then we
Yeah.
have it at the landfill.
And I imagine they shouldn't put plastic bags in there.
Yeah, we ask not to.
Yeah,
We provide biodegradable bags, Mr.
Yeah.
Howard,
yeah,
free of charge. People want them.
Yeah.
Because each year we get grants from Mass DEP based on how our program works.
Right.
And, this year we got $19,500. That's one of the things, we buy biodegradable bags,
So you have those available for the public?
absolutely,
Oh,
free of
great,
charge.
great.
Mhm.
Last thing, if I could, from my standpoint, sorry.
That's okay.
Where do we stand on snow and salt for this year and, and our budget?
So we, $975,000 was the budgeted amount,
Right.
and we've spent $260,000 right now.
So pretty much
Probably a
about a
little bit.
third of it, so to speak.
Yeah, and, most of it, Mr. Howard, is the materials, the salt we buy, and we've got 2 full sheds right now.
Right.
So, that $260,000 includes the materials we've bought and are waiting for the next event. So,
How much does an event put a dent in that?
probably 300 tons. We've got a shed there that, 800 tons, it can hold, 300 tons.
For one event?
Yeah, it all depends. Duration
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the whole,
I think we've had a bunch of small ones that just, so to speak, nuisance type stuff.
yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We've all been very fortunate, and but they've been long duration, but
Right.
nothing substantial that's overwhelming us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hajan?
Just a couple questions, Mark. First, I just want to thank you and your team for not only the level of services that are provided, but the variety of services that you provide or make available to the residents of this town, whether it's at your yard or up at the center on Winter Street. It's really quite something, so I thank you. Just a couple questions. One, under the water department, you indicate met once with water consultant on next year's water projects. Could you just give us a preliminary on, I know you met once, but any big projects that we should be made aware of that you're probably looking into for?
So you are all well aware of the Sharon interconnection project. And, Sharon is putting in a station that will allow water to be transported from Norwood to Sharon. And that's going to be put on Union Street at the town line. And they have committed $1.5 million towards Norwood to improve the water mains in that area. Those water mains are old cast iron mains that are unlined. And as you know, we've been doing a lot of unlined cleaning and lining projects. So that project is starting up right now. Mr. Mizuko and I met with Sharon officials yesterday, and we're moving forward for a spring project to clean and line or replace water mains on Union Street and Sumner Street. And that's all on Sharon's dime. We're going to start meeting shortly for the projects that we do annually. And we'll decide on what projects best fit the Norwood's plan going forward. But, between the MWRA committing $629,000 this coming year, and hopefully town meeting follows up with another $500,000 like they did last year. We'll get a substantial project, Mr. Hajar, Not quite sure where it is. It might be to try to strengthen the system towards the Route 1 area of Sumner Street, but that's something we'll all talk about with the town manager and the consultant.
Great, thank you. And at the cemetery, supervised the roof replacement at the maintenance building. I was glad that that project made the capital outlay list. Is that done, or is it just you're supervising an ongoing?
Complete.
It is complete, so.
Complete.
The rest of the work's not done. There's some, there was a bathroom modification that had to be made and some electrical repairs. That's not done, but the roof's
The roof
completed.
itself, okay, so it's a shingle roof?
Shingle roof at the garage maintenance building, and as town manager said, we're meeting with the consultant actually next week, this week, I'm sorry, to go over the proposals to provide handicap accessible bathrooms at the office and some HVAC and electrical upgrades.
It's great, glad to see the roof done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jacques. Mr. Maloney?
Just real quickly, I noticed we have finalizing design on municipal parking lots for spring construction. That's great. That was on our list. That's, I think, six parking lots in the downtown area, right?
Plus the senior
But
center.
that includes the senior center, yes. Yep.
So are we confident we can get it done in the upcoming warm season, you think?
Absolutely. We plan on bidding in March, start construction sometime in April.
Good.
We actually, in addition to retiming some of our capital projects, we may want to look at skipping a fall season and retiming our water and sewer work and road work to all sort of start in the early spring and then go forward. What happens is, is we get an appropriation from town meeting or an authorization in May, and then we're rushing to get everything done before the fall. If we skip one fall with the idea that we would start next spring, we'd likely be able to start and finish more of our work in one season.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Plasko?
Yeah, I don't think everyone has seen that. I think.
It's not, it'll be coming to the board before it goes out to bid.
Right. Okay.
We're just fine. We have 3 of the 5 lots the design is done on. We're waiting for all 5 to be done, and then we'll be bringing it to the board.
I know what you had and been working on, I guess we'll refer to as a draft, but I was looking at it and it might have been, I couldn't follow it, but I thought part of the process was going to be recommendations for management, and it seemed like all it did was list what we're currently doing. Was there any changes being recommended anywhere?
Oh, no, that document I provided you a draft copy with, that's just for what currently exists for the lots. We'll have a separate discussion about if we want to change what lots we're allowing permitted parking in and looking at our parking regulations as a whole. Okay. That won't really play into the redesign of the lots necessarily, but it's time we have a conversation about what we're doing at our municipal parking lots. There's just some variations without any...
I'd have to do with posting some signage and stuff.
Some signage and where we allow overnight parking. It's just, it's not a critical problem, but it's just sort of grown over many years of we've sort of patched it in here and there.
All right, so there will be more on this coming.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything else on the monthly report?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to move on to complete streets?
I would love to. So I have a little presentation for the people at home and the board to watch. In 2013, Mass DOT developed a complete streets program where if towns started adhering to certain criteria on how they manage the construction, design and construction of their streets, they would make available funding for those projects, and that funding is up to $400,000 a year. So what is a complete street? A complete street, designed and operated to provide safe and accessible accommodations for all users of the town, roadway and travel system. The implementation of the complete street principles contributes to the safety, health, economic viability, and quality of life in the town of Norwood. This is done by providing safe, accessible, and efficient connections between home, school, work, recreation, and retail distribution throughout the town of Norwood. The purpose of the town's complete street policy is to accommodate all users, and that's walkers, runners, bicyclists, motorists, transit users, by creating a transportation network that meets the needs of the residents and visitors who utilize a variety of transportation needs. So this is the vision and purpose that's described in the Complete Streets policy that the Board of Selectmen adopted in July 23rd, 2019. So I do have a, hopefully it's going to be put up there for people to see, so
There
complete
we go.
streets. So we'll go to the next slide. Complete streets, give you a little definition. What's going on, I'm sorry. I just gave you the definition. So in March of 2019, we received a $35,000 grant from Mass DOT for technical assistance to develop a complete streets prioritization plan. We had a public workshop on June 12th, 2019. And I know Mr. Maloney was very torn about that because the Bruins are playing in Game 7 against the Blues in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Was that the night?
That was the night, and
Son of a gun.
I was right there with you, Mr. Maloney,
Well, I hope your
agonizing
presentation
over
did better
that.
than the Bruins.
So we had a public workshop, and quite a few people showed up, and the workshop was hosted by obviously the town of Norway. This is at the police and fire station, and we had a consultant there and our engineers there, and people came in, and there were charrettes, as they call them in the old days, people saying, this is what I'd like to see, that's what I would like to see, why can't they do that? And we took all that information, and all that information was taken in to start developing the plan. And we also had a group working on this internally, myself, Andy Murphy, Assistant Town Engineer, Brian Murphy, Civil Engineer, Paul Riccardi, Schools Ground Superintendent, Steve Begley, the Traffic Safety Officer, Paul Halkiotis and Patrick DeShane from the Planning Department, went over what we gained from that workshop, but we also know, being out there every day, what other projects we could add to it. So we added to those projects, and we came up with a list of projects that I'll talk about later. So that was June in 2019, and there was a lot of work going on after that. And then in July 2019, I talked about the Board of Selectmen approving the Complete Streets policy, and that was approved by Mass DOT to proceed forward. So we developed a prioritization plan based on the workshop and other potential projects, and we had 3 meetings to go over, what is the most important projects of the town of Norwood in our opinion. Now, part of us developing this plan, there's a little background knowledge that we had that the state funds projects that are in these so-called environmental justice areas. And I left the plan in everyone's seat there, environmental justice map. And Norwood has 3 areas, environmental justice areas, based on percentage of minority populations and income. And those rate really high with Mass DOT. They really do. When they're looking to fund a project, it's in areas such as these areas that are shown on this map. So, that helped us, decide what's a priority. But we also looked at projects we knew were coming down the line. We knew certain projects were going to happen in the next few years, that this was like a home run. It's on our plan, on the roadway resurfacing reconstruction plan, plus an environmental justice area. These are really good projects that we felt would be top priority. So Mass DOT in their prioritization plan, they want your top 5 projects. Because after 5 years, you can start readjusting or replacing your other projects. But when you submit the plan to them, the top 5 plans are the ones you're going to be going with during the next 5 years during the application process. So those 5 priorities, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the priority number 1 was the Short Street, Moore Street pedestrian accommodations. And that's to build new curbing and sidewalk along Short Street, Moore Street from Washington Street, right across from the Hawes Pool, to the Ponce River Bridge, which was done in 2010. And the reason we felt this was important is because this project, you see many people getting off at the MBTA 34E bus line there and walking to Route 1 to go to work. You also see people walking to school. You have 2 schools in that area. You get the Bald School and you have the Coakley Middle School. So we felt this was to rate very highly because it's an environmental justice area. It meets a lot of their criteria, public transportation, walkers, pedestrian access, school systems, and plus, it was very close to being on one of our next projects to be done on our 5-year roadway resurfacing project.
That's the intersection, right?
The lights.
The light at the intersection. You're talking about it's very close to something we were already going to do.
So the lights are separate. The lights are going to be done
Yep.
on a separate project. Town meeting approved that. It's in design right now.
Yep.
We're hoping to go out to bid late spring, summertime for fall construction.
Okay.
This is separate. This would tie into it.
That's what I thought you meant. Okay.
This would tie into it. So it
So
would
it's
be a
good.
perfect complement. Absolutely.
Thank you.
The priority number 2 would be curbing and sidewalk along Washington Street from Short Street right to the Walpole Town Line. And once again, this met the criteria of environmental justice area. And it's on our plan, 5-year plan to do that roadway area over. We got a number of 34E bus stops along there. We got people walking to the Coakley Middle School, and we do have some people going to the Bald, not as many as the Coakley, but this was a no-brainer. This was a no-brainer for the committee. Priority 3 would be the intersection of Nichols Street at Westover Parkway and George F. Willard Parkway. This is not an environmental justice area, but it's next to a school. It's a very active area for pedestrians, very active area for a lot of people who run or bike along there. And we felt this was a safety issue there. If any of you ever really spent a few times pulling out of George F. Willard Parkway or Westover Parkway, people moving pretty rapidly, coming down the hill on Nichols Street. And this is one of those things we thought was a no-brainer as far as a safety project for many users.
Can we ask questions about?
Sure.
Mark, my overall comment is, you guys have done a great job putting together a document that looks not just what we want to do this year, next year, but gives a long-term view of what needs to take place. And yes, plans change over the course of time, but at least you have something that you can reference and constantly update. I think that's great. It's not something that we've had in the past with regards to all these different sidewalk or intersection reviews. I am concerned about number 3. Having lived nearby and always at the Cleveland School, creating a rotary roundabout, basically, yeah, right, semantics. But in that area, I'm really concerned that it'll be overreaching. I know there can be at times speed issues, people come down that hill, but having been there many mornings and many afternoons, especially when the kids are going to the Cleveland, crossing the street with the crossing guard, or leaving the school. Tell me, I'm still not fully acceptance of a roundabout in that intersection. I'm not sure. I see the validity of it. I'd be interested in my colleague, Mr. Maloney, since he lives in that area as well, if we really think that it's necessary to put a roundabout at that intersection.
So that's up in the air, what we finally do there, Mr. Jar. It's intersection improvements. That's one of the thought process was a roundabout, but You know, if you look at the document that we're going to submit to Mass DOT, it just talks about, you know, bicycle ADA accommodations, compliant ramps, anything we can do to improve the safety in there. So we're not locked into a roundabout. It was just one of the things that was thrown out in the discussion at the workshop, but that,
Right.
in the end, that's totally up to the Board of Selectmen when we
Right,
decide what we're gonna put there.
You know, overall, when we talk about bike routes, I mean, to me, Nickel Street is probably a good candidate for bike lane because of its width, and it's pretty open. There isn't, except for the one part in the morning, one part in the afternoon, a lot of congestion, its availability. But, so I can see the point in that, but, okay, as long as we're not married to the roundabout now, like I said.
And we can change that if the board says.
Well, I'm not the only one, obviously.
I think the majority of the board would be against a roundabout or a road.
So intersection improvements.
Intersection improvement would be fine, traffic lights, whatever. And as far as speeding coming down the hill, I think that's an enforcement issue with the police department. And as far as people coming and going from the school at various times, there is a crossing guard at the opening of the school and a crossing guard at the closing of the school. So we have like 43, 46 items on this list. I think in the majority of the board right now, that roundabout would not be in the top 5.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, Mr. Maloney.
I do agree with you, and I want to say the same thing. Look, I'm very impressed with the work that's been done here. I really have, with the attention to detail and the and thoroughness. I do want to confirm here, or have it confirmed for me, that any decisions made based on these recommendations are made by the Board of Selectmen. Is that fair? Is that true?
Correct, it
Absolutely.
changes the traffic pattern, so absolutely.
Yeah, all right. No, because I mean, I'll be honest with you, Mark. I mean, I'm not really, I'm with Mr. Hajar on the roundabout thing. I know that there can be speeding coming down the street, but the sight lines are pretty long, going both ways on Nickel Street there. ADA compliance and you know, would probably be good, and if you need more crosswalks or something there, right? I don't see the need to put in a roundabout. But anyway, I just wanted to confirm that greater point. Thank you, Mr.
Absolutely.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Mr. Howe, I'm sorry, Mr. Plasko.
Thank you. Yeah, I would chime in as well. I came back from a couple trips over to Ireland, and I thought roundabouts were the greatest thing in the world. But I also think it's a matter of where they're used and how they're used. And I know you guys are the engineers, and I'm not, but somebody has to prove to me that that makes sense. It doesn't seem at all like the appropriate place to start off with. But my bigger concern is if I just heard you correctly or not. We're talking about this, getting a presentation here, and with some reference to it's not on what's being submitted to the state. Why are we talking about something that's not being submitted to the state, or did I misunderstand you?
I think Mr. Ryan was referencing this is what's submitted to the state, but what we're saying is we want to do intersection improvements to include all of these different items. They've got to get engineered and designed, so we're not necessarily locked into specifically the roundabout per se.
So we're not telling the state that we're doing roundabouts?
We are not. Mr. Plasko, a little later on, I'll tell you next steps, but we want you to feel comfortable about this document going in. And if you don't like the top 5, and that's all we need, the top 5. The next, 38, they don't have to be in any order. They really don't, because after 5 years, you can readjust the remainder of it. The key right now, as far as our submittal in the state, is choosing the top 5.
And why, go back to the very basics, why are we submitting this? We're going to get grants?
Yes.
Yes, good point. So it'll make us eligible each year to apply for a grant up to $400,000 towards this work.
That's the different sources.
That's,
All good?
For the moment, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Howard? Nothing?
No, not right now.
Please continue, sir.
so, Mr. Chairman, the priority number 4 of the group was the Sumner Street pedestrian accommodations. This is an area that, remember years ago, we constructed a sidewalk on Sumner Street leading from Route 1 down to basically Union Street to accommodate many of the neighborhoods there. This would just be an extension of that project to extend the sidewalk up to the Walpole Town Line on Sumner Street. This would make area, for the neighborhood up in that area to connect to Route 1, if they want to go to Route 1 to visit some of the businesses, and they do that, I assure you. And it makes it a lot safer accommodations for a lot of the neighbors. You also have Doherty Park up there, which people walk quite a bit up Sumner Street, and I see them. It's very unsafe, so this would be one of the projects we thought would be a huge asset to that area, and plus it's in an environmental justice area, so this would score very highly, and that's why we made that recommendation.
And if I could just interrupt for 1 second, I think Mr. Howard might have a question.
The sidewalk, is it on both sides of the street? On Union?
One side.
So your intention is to have two sides, right?
The intention is just one side. This project would just fund the sidewalk one side up in that area. Just like Sumner Street going from Route 1 down to Union Street, there's a sidewalk on one side.
Well, personally, I'd like to see us as part of it to go to the other side as well.
You don't have the land.
But that's just me.
You don't have the land.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's a funding thing, Mr. Howard, but having one is a huge
Better than that, yeah.
improvement.
Okay.
But Mr. Hajjaj just stated there may not be enough land taking, that we'd have to take land or something.
Might have to, yeah, because it's one of those narrow, country roads.
County road.
Yeah.
Please continue.
And then, Mr. Chairman, number 5 on the recommendation, a sidewalk with new curbing on George F. Wheeler Parkway running from Nickel Street to Route 1A. And this would provide access to the schools. Also connect the network. We're trying to connect this whole trail system, coming down from Father Max to Winter Street, from Winter Street to the Willard School, then through the sidewalk system, through Westover Parkway, and then you get to Nickel Street and there's no sidewalk. This would provide a sidewalk with access to 1A, but also to the Ellis Pond as part of, our thought of connecting a lot of the natural resources out there.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
On
Maloney?
that, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, I know we are a lot. Mark, that would be a great one. That, having walked on that road quite a bit myself, that's just a dangerous road to walk on, Thank you.
The problem is, there's 43 items to take into consideration, and we can only pick the top 5. That's
Yeah,
difficult.
you just, that's your focus, top 5, what's important. If I can stress, I can't stress enough, number 1 and 2 are so important because environmental justice area, huge points, probably get funded. Number 2, those are projects we're looking to fund by ourselves in the next couple of years. Why not take advantage of a Mass DOT grant? So, 3, 4, and 5, if you want to, shift things around, I mean, personally, and I think the group would say the same thing, number 1 and 2 are no-brainers right now. They're very important, and, and I don't know
Well,
let's go to
can I
next
just
steps.
ask you this? If, let's say we decided, we just thought number 3, for example, we just don't like that one, we could substitute number 6. We could go 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, right? Is that,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So
Okay.
we can move 6 up, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, just go to the next steps, and maybe this will help you in tonight's meeting. So here's priority number 5. So what are our next steps? Approve this plan, all right? It doesn't have to happen tonight, all right? We want to submit this, if you look at number 2, to Mass DOT by mid-March, all right? So if you want to take this back and convene on yourselves, or nominate someone to be a liaison to talk more about it. We just want to get this in by mid-March, because we would submit that by the end of March. Mid-April, we'll probably get approval.
Submit with 5? Submit with 5? or
Submit
what?
the whole thing, but make sure you know what your top 5 are.
Right.
Okay, we're going to submit this whole thing into 43 projects.
Okay, what's 6 then? What's 6, to just find out?
Hospital area,
The hospital area?
6?
Washington Street, right?
Number 6 on your list is the
If
hospital.
you feel number 6 is a priority, we'll move
No,
it up.
no, no, if you lose 3, what's 6?
Oh, okay.
So the state is focused on, when you submit this plan, your top 5. So the
Yeah.
next 5 years,
That's what I'm saying.
you're
So what's
you're gonna
6?
submit number 1.
Yeah,
The next application,
I
you're gonna
follow.
submit number 2.
I follow.
Number 6, you're gonna say.
No, but just to have 5, to have your 5 top.
Just be really firm and
What he's saying
confident
is
in your
if we
top
took
5.
3 off the list, number 6 on our current list would move within the top 5. He was asking you to describe project number 6 on your list, in case we move it up to within the
Yeah,
top 5.
so number 6 is a great project. You know, it's not an environmental justice area, but it could gain a lot of points. It's putting the rapid rectangular flashing beacons in front of the hospital and down on the corner of Broadway and East Hoyle, where a lot of people cross. Great project. I think you get a lot of points there.
May
Absolutely.
not serve the environmental justice issue.
It isn't. It
But
isn't.
it's serving a public safety issue.
But when you start talking commuters walking to a train station, you're talking a hospital,
Constant flow of traffic back and forth. Foot traffic.
that's gonna gain, that probably is equal to an environmental justice area. So if that's
Justice,
important to you,
A lot of justice, yeah.
a lot of justice.
Mr. Plasko,
So
please.
you're rating these based on MassDOT's system that will score high so that they'll get the funding? Is that the
That's-
points you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
So why do we have however many, 40-something, whatever it is,
43.
projects if we only need to send them 5?
You're only eligible for funding for up to 5. They want to see a whole list. They want to know that you're looking at it holistically and not just coming up with 5 things you want to
Okay.
fund.
Is it 5 every year, or 5 every 5?
So after 5 years, you can readjust this whole thing.
Okay, so I'm gonna send in a list with, I got 43, I gotta send in, but I got 43, but these are my top 5.
Yeah,
Mass DOT, we wanna get the funding that's illustrated on here for those 5 over the next 5 years.
you're gonna apply each time it's available. All right, you're not gonna be saying, okay, they're not gonna say, okay, you got your first 5, it amounts to this amount. No, each year we have to apply in,
Oh, I see. So
This is a
year 1, they might say,
competitive-
we'll fund number 1 for you.
this is competitive project.
Okay,
This is a competitive grant.
Okay.
And when the slide goes up with next steps, you know, this will help you, and then we can talk a little bit more.
okay, yep.
You know, approval expected in mid-April of our plan, whatever we decide on. All right, let's have it in by mid-March. We don't have to decide 100% on this. And then in May, we submit priority number 1 for a grant. In July, we receive a notification. Now, it's a competitive grant. It's not guaranteed.
Okay,
That's why you want to try to score as many points as possible. Okay, and that's why we talk environmental justice,
ADA.
commuter rail, all those things. You know, it isn't just, oh, we want to put a sidewalk, you know, down this particular street, because, you know, they're going to look at it, you know, pretty intense here. In July, we'll get notified, like I said, and then we'll start entering into a contract with Mass DOT. Then you have 1 year to complete the project, so you're probably going to get a, you know, notification in July, a grant in September, and you gotta hit the ground running.
So like-
1 year before you apply for another grant.
A lot
so
of
the
that's
first
going
one,
to be during the winter.
the first one for us is Short Street, let's say, on this list now, right?
If that's our recommendation,
Okay,
yes.
so say it is, so we might, it's competitive, we might get approval for funding for that project in the first year, at the first granting, and then we have a year to complete that one project, and then the following year, we can go back and ask for number 2.
Correct.
Now, just one last thing, I went over to Mr. Jai, I see his hand up. I see also, we talk about funding here, and I see, for example, item number 1 is $525,000. We're going to request $400,000 from the Complete Streets Funding Program. Other funding sources would therefore leave $125,000. That's presumably the town.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just to
Mr.
follow
Schaaf,
up
follow
on
up.
that, because if we get notified in July by the state,
Yeah, when are we getting the money?
when do we, and they say, okay, we're gonna give you $300,000. It's not an automatic 400, right?
Correct.
That's our upper eligibility, is the 400.
That's the max.
So say they say 300, we have to come up with 225. When would we do that? Because we've already had special town meeting. Either we have to wait and then delay the
Dean
thing.
Street Bridge, probably.
It's always a Chapter 90 eligible expense. So that's always one option for it. So we would have to decide, okay, do we want to move something along in the road paving plan if we needed the money before we could get to a town meeting, and then just supplement that with free cash or something down the road. So getting the money that we would need wouldn't necessarily be a problem.
Well, it would be. You're saying it might be available, but the timing and everything makes it kind of difficult.
Get it.
Particularly because you can't even get started until you know you have the money and you've only got a year. So you could waste 3 months getting the money.
You know, if we get the money in September and we couldn't finish it, we start the project in April, it's a 2-month project. We'll be done within the year.
Yeah, and we'll know, we'll have the timing down and the rhythm down. You're right, I mean, in time, you kind of figure out how to make this work. You go to town meeting, ask them what you think it might be. Yeah, okay.
It's just like a roadway, Mr. Plasko. And we can build it into the contract when we put it out to bid. You have 60 days or whatever to get it done, but that's not a concern.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
I don't know if I'm assuming you don't plan to go through all these tonight?
No, but I think by the end of the night, I'd like to have everybody start thinking about their top
We don't
5.
necessarily have to be doing this tonight, maybe we could table a week or two.
No, well, we could do the 5.
But I do have a couple of questions or comments, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
At the liberty.
Please.
I'm a little concerned about some of these that are rating because of bicycle paths. And in particular, Washington, number 34, Washington Street bikeless accommodations. We're gonna put a striped new 4-foot lanes down both sides of Washington Street between Coakley and Central Street. So we're gonna remove and reduce parking for bicycles. You know, this might be great, in my opinion, this might be great in an urban area in Boston. More people are using that as alternate travel, and there's so many cars and everything on the street. But we're still in suburbia, we don't have that, and then we're gonna lose parking over it?
So, Mr. Plasko, you are the roadway commissioners, you decide which projects down the road are gonna be prioritized. That came out of the workshop. We're required to include everything that's in the workshop unless it was really
Doesn't meet
bizarre.
parameters.
Based on public input, a
Correct,
lot of it,
correct. So,
important to note.
project number 34 is a long way away.
What if I just want to eliminate project number 34 entirely from the plan? Can I do that?
Sure, we don't have to submit 43, right?
If you want to do that, you want to take them out, absolutely.
That's part of the deliberative process that we're going to go through after we take this under advisement tonight.
Yeah, if you want to start
anyway, so-
eliminating projects.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank
Of
you.
course.
One
Mr.
more
Chairman.
that has kind of been a concern of mine. It really started with a couple of years back with Mr. Howard, but recently it's been a concern of mine, and that's the constructing an ADA compliant sidewalk and so forth, and the flashing beacons in front of the Civic Center.
Mhm.
This is listed as 28. It's listed that we're going to seek, am I reading this correctly? $100,000.
Right.
But it's also saying we're starting the project in 2019. We've already got town funds and we're using it, and we're not going to be seeking it presumably for 4 or 5 years out if we're doing five a year continues to be the pattern. Why is this even on the list?
Because someone at the workshop asked for that, Mr. Plasko, and we want to have it on there, and at some point, we're going to say, cross it off the list, we took care of it.
All right.
I think the
That's
point
what I
out-
think we should do right now if we're basically ready to start. I have another comment on that. You mentioned something last time you were here, and on that same subject, that same crossing. And I kind of bit my tongue that night because I assumed you were doing some study or something and coming back to us. And even if that's the case, I guess I want to speak up tonight, not even wait for your study, any study you're doing to come back. Talked about eliminating 2 parking spaces in front of the diner at that location. I think that's an untenable option. There's only 3 spaces there. It's hardworking people trying to make a living, doing a good business over there. The town put in a lot of money into that building in the sign facade program a number of years ago. And to take out 2 parking spaces, I think we're just working against them, possibly putting them out of business. I can see possibly a compromise of one added to the neck down that's already there for a little extra vision, but two whole parking spaces as well as the neck down that's already there seems like total overkill. I don't personally believe there's a visibility issue there. I think there's a speeding issue there. And the people come through these two set of lights that are so close together, and when they finally get through that Central Street, all they do is step on the gas. They see people crossing and they stop, but they're going fast, and that leads our concern. But it's not the site. It's just that they've already put their foot to the pedal. And I just don't think that it's practical to put these people out of business by taking 2 spaces away from there.
So to that, we'll be presenting that to you, Mr. Plasko, with 1 space, 2 space, 3 spaces, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide what's the best option.
No, my vote. Thank you.
2 spaces.
And that's something we don't have, that's something we don't have to come up with an answer for tonight. What our job
Correct.
tonight is to absorb this information and come back at a later date with our 5 recommendations.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Just if I could, we had spoken earlier about how we want to get information from the board so we can sort of present the final project, if you will. I have a simple sheet if the board wanted to fill out and get back to us, just what projects you would like to move up, the numbers you'd like to move down, if there's anything you want removed, and if there's anything you want in the top 5 that's not there. If each board member could fill that out, then you and I could just work and have an idea of where the whole
Sounds like
the whole board is, just to
That's a good idea.
get a good way to.
That's a lot simpler.
Yeah.
I like to keep it simple.
So I will pass. One of
When
these
do you
for each
want
board
that,
member.
July or?
Oh, no, you gotta do a little bit of work for April. If you could, maybe in the next week or 2, and then we'll have Mark back in a couple of weeks. We have to get it approved by mid-March, so we have time. We don't wanna wait all the way till mid-March,
No, I'm
but
kidding, of
If you
course.
give them a week or 2, they will take 2 weeks. So if we give them 1 week,
how about if you could get it back to the manager's office in a week? That way Chairman Bishop and I can go through it.
Okay.
Oh, to you guys anyway.
Yeah.
And then you'll go over it. Then it'll come back. All right.
I would feel.
there's no reason why we can't do it in a week or less.
Yes. That's
That'd be
easy.
It's a
it.
good
That's
report.
it.
It
Thank
really
you.
is. It's a good report.
Exciting.
Thank you, and thank everybody, engineers, everybody that was involved, police department, everybody that was
Yeah.
involved. Thank them for us for their diligent work.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you, sir. Okay, let us get into new business if we can right now, starting with item number 1. John Apria from Progress Norwood submitting application to use the town common on Sunday, April 26th this year, from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m.
So we'll
to hold an Earth Day community picnic and fair. I have a motion?
Second?
On the motion,
And a second.
on the motion,
On the motion, sir?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Apri in Progress Norwood asked that the electricity fee be waived. The fee is, how much is it? Well, at any rate, I move that want the motion to include the waiving of the electricity fee.
it does. It approves the application.
Okay, thank you.
So if that's clarified, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Number 2, revocation of licenses. The following licenses should be revoked for failure to renew. And the list is here in front of you, gentlemen. Any questions on the list?
No.
If you notice,
Motion to
the
revoke.
very last one is Supreme Auto Plug, who was just before us a few months ago. But I guess the rental on that property is becoming exorbitant, so he decided to leave. I have a motion to approve this list.
Second?
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Cigar Reese, number 3, Cigar Reese, Superintendent Director of the Board of Health, requesting an insert be placed regarding recycling in the light bills coming out on April and August of 2020.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed, unanimous. Number 4, Courtney Rao Rogers, League of Women Voters of Norwood, submitting request to insert a flyer in the March electric bills containing voter registration information.
Approval?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed, unanimous. Under memoranda, number 1, Selectmen's minutes for approval of the board, meeting minutes for October 1st, 2019.
Move to approve. Second?
I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor? Opposed, unanimous. Number 2, Building Inspector Mark Schubert submitting building report for December of 2019.
Information?
I have a motion for information. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
And a second?
Just a comment on.
Sir, Mr. Hajar.
So you know my thing about tracking these things, and Actually, it was another good month. Moderno took out their permit, so we're really doing good for the, I'm going to give you a copy of the spreadsheet. Really doing good for the year in comparison, where if you compare Decembers, if you look at the past 5 years, it's the second best year, year to date. So after 6 months, we're doing pretty well. And out of the first 6 months, 3 of those months have all been over $100,000 in fees that we've collected, which is, again, our best 6 months. So let's hope it continues. You never like to say that, well, it's just what it is, but that's why we like to look at historical data. In 5 years, we are looking pretty good, so it's a good forecast, I hope.
I think it shows something not only about the building department, but it also shows something about the town, that people want to come into the town and start businesses here, and people that currently live in the town are opting to make renovations to their home, decks, bathrooms, roofing, whatever, and stay in this town rather than move to another town. So I think it's good all around.
On that, Mr. Chairman, just
Mr.
one
Maloney?
thing following up on that too. I think Mr. Mizuko and Mr. Hajaryan and Mr. Plasko, we looked at the overhaul of the financial guidelines. We set a target for assumptions in following years for things like local receipts, which chief among them, or one of the chief among them, is this. I think it's 90%, right? We want to get to the point where the following year's projection is 90% of the most recent year, or the average of the most recent couple of years or something. So increases over time will also result in increases in estimates, but still playing it conservatively at something less than 100% is wise.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Anything else? That brings us to the general manager's update.
Just one item, Mr. Chairman. February 23rd, 2 p.m., the Police Community Room. We will be having the kickoff meeting for the 150th celebration. There will be cake provided by Mr. Maloney, and we will begin the planning process for the town's 150th celebration. So it's open to anyone to come, really just to throw out some ideas and see who's interested in volunteering to work on the town's 150th celebration. It's going to be a community-wide celebration. We're going to need a lot of volunteers. There will be other opportunities for folks who can't make it, but we figured what better way to celebrate our 148th birthday than by having some cake, courtesy of Mr. Maloney, and kicking off.
Twice he said that. I feel trapped.
And kicking off the planning for what will be a phenomenal 150th celebration for Norway.
I think it's very ungentlemanly of Mr. Mizuko to take advantage of my enthusiasm.
Like I said earlier tonight to the Friends of the Council on Aging, this is a great community. It's a great town. There's a lot to offer people. And this is a great chance to come out and celebrate with us on that 140th anniversary. So if you'd like to be involved, please come to the Police Community Room on that particular date. And we get some guidelines on where we want to go and how we want to do this. So thank you for that. And I also want to thank my colleague, Mr. Plasko, of those 140 years.
50.
He was here probably for the majority. 150. He was here for the majority of those years. So I want to thank him for his decades of service.
Oh my God.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
We
With
happy
that
to answer
said,
any questions the board
I'm
has.
speechless.
with that said, Mr. Howard, you have something tonight?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're quite welcome.
I feel honored being first.
Don't mix it up.
And I don't even sit on the end. Anyways, I'd like to call on our general manager and his, I forgot the word, and his skills at negotiating, we'll say, seriously, that it seems like now already, before the skating club construction is even complete, that on 2 separate occasions, the youth hockey hours have been reduced. Reduced once and then reduced again. And I ask you if there's anything you can do in that regard. The contact from the youth hockey is Mr. William Norman. You probably know Bill.
We've been working with him.
But we really need your help. That I love these people. You know, I've interacted with some of the principals there a couple times, and they're wonderful people. But this was quite arbitrary, frankly, and our folks are getting in desperate straits because of that. So we ask for your assistance in some fashion.
We'll certainly look into it. It's actually much more complicated than that. There's been a
No,
lot of
I
meetings over
understand.
the last several months.
It's been going on for a long time.
Been going on
It's
for a
not
long
anything
time.
new.
I think one of the reasons behind that is the United States Olympic Committee has approached them, and they're looking for more availability for practice and so on and so on. So I think they're
And
looking
so
at.
aren't the Metro teams.
And
So-
from day one, when they brought up the possibility that there might be some ice time for the local people, it was made very clear that it might not be permanent, might be short-term, and might have to be canceled. And in fact, in the
I don't think that was
in-
clearly brought out.
in the
though.
agreement that
I
we
just
signed
don't.
for a pilot, and in the draft agreements or contracts that would have been between the organization and the skating club, that was perfectly clear. And they're also not, the third rink was for their own use as they grew into it. As Mr. Bishop just said, they've had sudden, immediate new growth that requires time in that rink. Also, a couple of years have gone by that have already changed what they needed when they first talked about it a couple of years ago. And the club has still offered some significant time. It's not like they've taken away all time, significant time is
No, a
still
lot of
offered.
it they've taken away.
Yeah, I know a lot has, but a lot is still on the table.
Well,
All the
not a lot.
summertime they asked
Not a
for,
lot.
the weekend hours they've asked for are all still available.
Well, anyways, if there's something that might be able to be done, I ask for your help.
We'll certainly look into it.
Yes, I think a lot of the time that you're
That's all I
talking
can
about.
ask.
The time you're
Thank
looking at is during the week, and that's what's been eliminated. They still have time available, and they're giving it to the high school hockey team, I believe,
I think they've reduced the weekend too.
not to my knowledge.
No,
but-
they've offered exactly what they asked for and more if they want it.
I don't know. I don't know.
The issue is the Monday through Friday issue, and that's where it lies.
I thought it was weekend too, but I could be mistaken.
Well, the thing about weekend ice time is that it's purchased not so much by individual programs as by leagues, because that's when the games are played. So that's probably, the weeknight time is more valuable than the weekend time.
They've
I used to
also, the
purchase
skating,
ice
the
time
skating club has also
for the
started
youth hockey.
looking at the possibility and the likelihood of a fourth sheet of ice. And if they go forward with that fourth sheet of ice, the town would be getting the preferential treatment for time, which would be a hockey rink.
But that yet will be several years away.
That's probably 3 to 4, probably 4 years away.
Anything else, Mr. Howard?
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Maloney, you have something this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to a reminder that tomorrow night we have scheduled our first Capital Outlay Committee meeting. It will be held at 7 o'clock in room 12, which is down at the basement level of the buildings. It's a public meeting, all are welcome. Let's see. It's funny, somebody Mr. Howard, my colleague, brought up something with Mr. Ryan about recycling, and I did leave at everyone's desk an article that was in the Globe on recycling. It's become sort of an international issue. So just something for your consumption for my colleagues. And the other thing, Mr. Mizuko left us some information a few weeks ago, not that long ago, on pocket parks, possible places where we might locate pocket parks in the town, and also some information on low-value parcels all around the town. I think maybe, Mr. Chairman, if we have a chance, with your permission, we'd like to get that further discussion on, particularly on the pocket park thing, on the agenda, maybe in the next week or two. Would that be possible?
I think that would be very good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All set.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Mr. Hajar?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question or one issue if Tony could look into. I received a call during the week from a constituent on Oak Road or Oak Street, that there were no parking signs recently installed, and that 2 years ago there was a petition submitted to this board. The reason why I'm bringing it up in front of them, because they were all on it, where they requested no signs, and no signs were put up because of that petition, and now signs were put right back up, and their question is, how come?
We've actually already received that complaint, and we've looked into it. For some reason, the memo, if you will, didn't get into the traffic regulations, didn't get edited. So the DPW, as they were doing their normal QA/QC, looked at what we have for traffic regulations, checked the street and said, wow, the traffic regulations say that this needs to be changed. Oh, there needs to be X signs here, so they went ahead and put X signs up here. So there was just a miscommunication somewhere. We found that in the minutes. We're correcting that, and those signs will be coming down.
Thank you.
What had happened was, yes, there was a problem. We voted some time ago to take those signs away, and then it was never taken out of the traffic safety rules and regulations. That was an error. Somebody approached the safety officer, and he looked at it and said, oh, we can deal with that. They looked it up with the superintendent of public works. They saw it was still in the regulations. So they said, oh, it calls for signs. So they put the signs back. It's been rectified, and within the next few days, those signs should be taken down.
That's great, so I'm sure the residents of Hope.
We solved that one
So
earlier
you'll
this
be
afternoon.
very happy, and that's good, because they don't have issues with high schoolers parking. I know that's the reason why a lot of those side streets around there have those signs, but, so thank you very much.
You were very welcome.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Plasko?
Thank you. I was going to bring up last week, and I failed to ask you to put an item on the agenda for discussion, as Mr. Maloney just did, and I'd like to bring it forward next week for the timeliness of it. And that's the issue that's out there a little bit in some places across the Commonwealth and with at least some of our residents, and that's whether or not the Board of Selectmen should be known as a select board. And I bring it up at this time because we're headed to the Massachusetts Municipal Association's annual meeting, and also the Massachusetts Selectmen's Association meeting on Saturday morning of the 25th. And they're actually proposing bylaw changes where the whole association would be the select board, not the Selectmen's Association, and changing the membership to include select board members. Only about, and the Mass Municipal Association meeting, if you look at page 15 of the book we got, and 16, it lists members of different committees, of which one is chaired by our own general manager, Mr. Mizuko, but they don't list selectmen anymore, they list select boards, even though more than 50% of the individuals under that title are selectmen. So whether we would be taking a position, how we would feel about it, as to whether the association itself should change, which is an interesting topic to me because it seems to have picked up quite a bit of momentum, and yet at this time, the last time I checked records, only about 1/3 of the towns have actually already done this. You think if they had got up to 50% or something, they'd say, all right, everyone's going this way, let's change it. But only about 1/3 have, and they're looking to change everything, or in fact, the MMA seems to have already changed everything. And if we were going to do anything local, one of the things we might want to talk about would have to do with the town election. So again, it would be a timeliness issue. So I'd ask for a full discussion of this at next week's meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We'll bring that up at next week's meeting for
Nothing
discussion.
further this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And I have nothing this evening, and I am glad that Mr. Hajar brought up that problem on Oak Road, and it's been settled, and the signs will come down. And we'll go back to the way it was. So with that said, we have nothing else, so we'll be back next week if you choose to watch.
Motion adjourned?
Second?
I have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you all for watching.